Liam stepped out of the transport shuttle, his boots hitting the polished landing platform of Xylos Academy with a thud after 3 months of cramped quarters and recycled air. Interstellar travel was still stubbornly stuck in its awkward adolescence. Xylos Academy, a gleaming white monolith, loomed before him. Its polished marble facade shimmered in the sunlight, a sanctuary that forged the best and brightest engineers in the galaxy. Alien students swarmed past, bipedal, chitinous, you name it, each with a pulsing headband known as a neural interface, a personal AI assistant on steroids that granted them control over robots. Liam, a lone snowflake in a swirling storm of sleek black uniforms and pulsing headbands, gripped his invention folder, a comfort against his calloused palm. He didn't have a neural interface, but countless nights spent hunched over his workbench, tinkering with salvaged robots, had propelled him from the slums of Earth to the pristine halls of Xylos as the first and only human. Lost in thoughts, Liam crashed into a student, scattering his folder of inventions across the polished floor. Sorry about that, Liam rasped, his voice unused after the space commute. No worries, replied the student, a Zelvarian with eyes like glowing buttons, peering at Liam's scattered papers. He picked them off the floor. Whoa, what's this? Curiosity oozed from him. Liam snatched them back, a tad defensive. Just doodles, nothing special. The Zelvarian chuckled, a dry rasp. Oh, really? His voice wasn't mean, just intrigued. Wait, where's your neural interface? Liam, surprised by the alien's genuine interest, relaxed a bit. Don't have one. Spent all my money on a translator and transport here. Couldn't let my scholarship go to waste. The alien's eyes widened. Scholarships at Xylos? Suddenly, Liam wasn't just some space hobo to him. Well, genius, the alien said, a smile creasing his reptilian face. He pulled Liam close. I'm Kraxx, your unofficial Xylos guide and your new buddy, he said, letting out a hearty laugh. Relief flooded Liam as he reached his dorm large and filled with fancy high-tech amenities. It was a haven from the alien overload outside. Taking it all in for a moment, he plunged into the room's holographic displays, the mesmerizing glow bathing the space, while looking through his course for tomorrow. One in particular sent a shiver down his spine. Quantum Gravitational Dynamics, a 7 a.m. class taught by the infamous Professor Vortenz. Kraxx had warned him about Vortenz and her hatred for any engineering not supervised by a neural interface. Liam gulped. Between the interface-wielding aliens and his manual tools, he felt like a caveman at a robot convention. Doubt gnawed at him. Back home, he was the golden boy, the go-to fixer. He couldn't let Xylo break him. A spark of defiance ignited in his eyes. He reached for his folder of wild inventions, including the one that caught Kraxx's eye, a warp gate, a one-way ticket to instant travel. Still in its buggy stage, Liam had jury-rigged prototypes from scraps back home, all of which failed. But here, with alien tech at his fingertips, he could finally build the real deal. Grabbing his tools, Liam dismantled the intricate alien machines in his room. Initially, the confusing wiring and complex machines overwhelmed him. However, he began to notice a familiar pattern as he traced the alien circuits. It's not that different from the stuff back home, just more efficient. His eyes lit up as he realized adapting to this new environment wouldn't be as hard as he thought, even without a neural interface. A jolt ripped Liam from sleep. It was 6:58 a.m. Quantum Gravitational Dynamics with the infamous Professor Vortenz started in 2 minutes. He was toast. Shit, Liam muttered under his breath, his heart racing with anxiety. His dorm, once a marvel of alien tech, looked like a disaster zone after a night of feverish work on his warp gate project. Alien tech was mind-bendingly complex, but beneath the surface, Liam glimpsed familiar Earth principles. Throwing on clothes, he sprinted through the echoing corridors of the academy, the alien architecture a blur. He burst into the lecture hall, chest heaving. A hush fell over the class as Liam stumbled in. Professor Vortenz, a statuesque avian with piercing blue eyes that could cut glass, loomed over the platform. Mr. O'Connell, her voice dripped with disdain, I trust you have a compelling reason for this tardiness? Liam's face burned under 100 alien stares. Apologies, Professor. I overslept, he stammered. Professor Vortenz's skepticism was laser-sharp. A curious excuse for a Xylos Academy scholarship student? Take a seat, Mr. O'Connell. Murmurs erupted in the class as Liam's scholarship status was revealed. Eyes turned towards him, full of surprise and curiosity. Kraxx, his new Zelvarian friend, nudged him to an empty chair. Rough morning? Kraxx rumbled. Liam winced. You could say that. Silence! Professor Vortenz boomed. In 8 months, we will be embarking on a field trip to a fascinating, yet volatile world. Gravity fluctuations are a common occurrence there, presenting a unique opportunity to observe the effects of... Her lecture dissolved into a blur of complex equations, out of Liam's reach. Around him, students with neural interfaces had the information fed directly into their brains. Discouragement gnawed at Liam. Without an interface, he was reduced to a glorified note-taker, struggling to keep pace with the rapid-fire lecture. Suddenly, Liam's world staggered sideways, slamming him into his seat. The lights flickered like a dying star, strobing the lecture hall in a nauseating rhythm. A collective gasp became a scream as the gravity went rogue. One moment students were pinned to their chairs, the next they were flailing, weightless marionettes. Panic, thick and suffocating, filled the room. Professor Vortenz, usually the picture of composure, barked orders that were swallowed by the chaos. Students with neural interfaces thrashed their heads, sending useless commands to the malfunctioning system. Liam, however, watched the scene with a chilling calm. Here, amidst the frantic scrambling, the students, even the formidable professor, were rendered helpless by their blind reliance on the interface. A tiny hatch on the control panel winked at him, a beacon in the storm of flashing lights. Liam shoved past the flailing students, his focus laser-sharp. "What's he doing?" A nearby voice shrieked, a blend of terror and bewilderment. Professor Vortenz screeched, "Mr. O'Connell, get away from that!" Her voice cracked with frustration, but Liam was already lost in the problem. His night spent wrestling alien tech had prepared him for this moment. His fingers danced across the exposed panel, sparks flying like angry fireflies. The gravity system groaned, retaliating with increased fluctuations that sent objects tumbling through the air. Panic clawed at the edges of Liam's concentration. A desperate yell echoed through the room. "Step away, Mr. O'Connell! A dedicated neural interface specialist is on their way." The realization that his tinkering might have made things worse hammered at him. Sweat stung his eyes, but he pushed the panic down. Failure was a possibility, but so was success. Ignoring the rising chorus of shrieks, he bypassed overloaded circuits, rerouting power with a practiced flick of his wrist. A satisfying thud resonated as the system stabilized. Students tumbled back to their chairs, surprised yelps replacing their screams. A heavy silence descended, thick with tension. All eyes were on Liam. Some reflected dawning respect. Others held a flicker of disbelief. Kraxx, his Zelvarian friend, broke the silence, his voice a mixture of awe and confusion. "How did you— even our interfaces could—" His excitement was cut short by Professor Vortenz. Professor Vortenz wasn't having it. Her feathers ruffled like a hawk scenting prey, her voice a frigid reprimand. "Mr. O'Connell, deaf are we?" Liam started to defend himself. "But I fixed—" Professor Vortenz cut him off, her face a thundercloud. "This time, but next time, we might not be so lucky." She addressed the class, regaining a semblance of control. "This incident exemplifies why reckless tinkering is forbidden at the Academy." Her gaze snapped back to Liam, a spark of fury flickering in her eyes. "Don't disobey me again, Mr. O'Connell. This is your only warning." Liam's triumph curdled. He'd saved the day, but Professor Vortenz saw his ingenuity as a reckless gamble. "Don't sweat it," Kraxx boomed, giving Liam a backslapping congratulations that rivaled a linebacker's tackle. "She's just mad you outsmarted her precious interface." Wincing from the well-meaning blow, Liam realized Kraxx was right. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. It outsmarted the tech on its own playing field. After the incident in class, Liam became a whirlwind. He and Kraxx raided junkyards on the Academy's fringes, their pockets overflowing with scavenged spaceship parts. Kraxx, initially doubtful of Liam's secret warp gate project, couldn't resist Liam's contagious enthusiasm and raw genius. The next 2 months were a blur. Professor Vortenz and Liam clashed head-on in class. Her pronouncements about neural interface guided engineering a stark contrast to his messy, hands-on approach. But each lecture fueled Liam's fire, a burning desire to prove his unorthodox methods could lead to breakthroughs. One night, hunched over his cluttered dorm workbench, Liam tinkered with a small salvaged engine core. Kraxx, ever the loyal and slightly nervous sidekick, watched Liam intently. After making the final adjustments, Liam connected the energy core. A beat of silence filled the room, and then sparks erupted, lighting up the space. It was a familiar dance, quickly contained, but the aftershock was anything but routine. Liam's prototype warp gate flickered, then distorted wildly. It morphed into 2 swirling vortexes, pulsating with an energy that sent shivers down his spine. Awe and terror warred within him. These weren't glitches, they were tears in the very fabric of space-time. Intrigued, he tentatively reached out with his tool. The tool vanished, sucked through one vortex, but then, just as abruptly, it reappeared out of the other vortex with a satisfying clink. The vortexes winked out a heartbeat later, leaving Liam and Kraxx speechless. A slow grin stretched across Liam's face. He'd done it. His wild experiments, fueled by sleepless nights and relentless tinkering, had stumbled upon a working warp gate.